Imagine living your entire life as a mirror. You never speak first. You only reflect what others want to see. You smile when you're tired. You agree when you're breaking. You apologize for things that were never your fault. And the scariest part? People don't even notice the mirror. They only notice themselves. If that sentence touched something in you, follow, because this conversation is for people who are tired of disappearing. Now let's dive into what people-pleasing really is, the lie they sold you. People-pleasing is not kindness. It's not empathy. It's not being a good person. People-pleasing is fear wearing a polite face. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being abandoned. So you learn early. If I make everyone comfortable, I'll be safe. You become easy to like and impossible to know. And if you're still listening, follow, because this is about to get uncomfortable in a good way. Why people become people pleasers, the root cause. Most people pleasers were trained, not born. You grew up in an environment where love was conditional. Approval had rules. Silence was safer than honesty, so you adapted. You learned that saying no brought punishment. Expressing emotions caused tension. Being agreeable earned peace. Psychologists call this fawning, a trauma response where you survive by making yourself useful, likable, invisible. You didn't choose people-pleasing. You chose survival. But survival is not the same as living. Follow, because we're about to talk about the cost. What happens to people-pleasers, the invisible damage? Here's what no one tells you. People-pleasers don't lose others first. They lose themselves. You wake up one day and realize you don't know what you want. You feel resentment, but can't explain why. You give endlessly and still feel empty. People start respecting you less, not because you're weak, but because you never taught them where the line is. And slowly, you become exhausted. You become bitter. You become angry at people who never asked you to sacrifice yourself. The tragedy? They think you're kind. You know you're tired. If you've felt this before, follow. You're not alone, and you're not broken. There's an old proverb. The person who tries to please everyone pleases no one, least of all themselves. Another says, when you bend too much, people forget you can stand. History, psychology, and life agree on one thing. Over-accommodation invites exploitation. Not always intentional. Not always malicious, but always predictable. Follow, because now we're stepping into Machiavelli's shadow. What Machiavelli would say about people-pleasing. Machiavelli would not call people-pleasing immoral. He would call it dangerous. In The Prince, he warns that those who try to be loved by everyone end up controlled by everyone. Power is lost when boundaries are unclear. Excessive generosity weakens authority. The truth about people-pleasing that most people won't accept. The most dangerous people-pleasers aren't obvious. They don't look weak. They don't look broken. They look kind, reliable, good. And that's why this truth is hard to swallow. People-pleasing is not selfless, it's self-protection. People like to believe they're pleasing others out of love. But most of the time, it's fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict. Fear of being disliked. So you give, agree, soften yourself, not because you want to, but because you're trying to control how others feel about you. That's not kindness. That's emotional insurance. Follow. This gets deeper. People pleasers are not as nice as they seem. This is uncomfortable, but true. People pleasers often hide resentment behind smiles. They say yes but feel angry. They help but keep score. Because when you don't express your needs, they don't disappear. They turn into quiet bitterness. Unspoken boundaries always collect interest. You train people how to treat you. Most people pleasers say, people take advantage of me. But the harder truth is, you taught them it was okay. Not by words, but by silence. By overgiving. By staying when you should have stepped back. People don't respect sacrifice they didn't ask for. Being liked is not the same as being respected. People pleasers are often liked and quietly dismissed. You become dependable, but not prioritized. Helpful, but not heard. Present, but not valued. Respect comes from clarity, not compliance. And clarity requires the courage to disappoint. People-pleasing is a control strategy. This is the truth many won't accept. When you try to keep everyone happy, you're trying to manage outcomes. You're thinking, if I say the right thing, if I behave the right way, they won't leave. But humans don't bond through perfection. They bond through authenticity. Control kills connection. People pleasers often don't know who they are. After years of adapting, adjusting, and agreeing, you forget your own voice. Someone asks, "What do you want?" And your mind goes blank. That's not confusion. That's disconnection from self. You became fluent in others and illiterate in yourself. People-pleasing doesn't bring peace. It delays conflict. You don't avoid conflict by people-pleasing. You postpone it. And when it comes back as burnout, resentment, emotional withdrawal, sudden explosions people never saw coming. Suppressed truth always demands release. Machiavelli would not praise people-pleasing. He would warn against it. To him, excessive agreeableness weakens authority. Those who try to be loved by everyone end up being used by everyone. Power in his eyes comes from boundaries, not from approval, not cruelty, not manipulation, but firmness. Here's the hardest truth of all. People-pleasing doesn't make you safe. It makes you invisible, and no one protects what they don't see. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to become selfish. You need to become honest with others, and especially with yourself. If this made you uncomfortable, good. Growth always is. How to know you're a people-pleaser. If you feel guilty for resting. If no makes your chest tight. If disappointing others feels worse than betraying yourself. This isn't kindness. It's conditioning. Follow, because self-awareness is the first form of power. You apologize too much. You apologize for taking space, for having needs, for asking questions, for existing loudly, even when nothing is your fault. Your mouth says sorry before your mind decides. That's not politeness. That's fear of being a problem. You say yes, while hoping they cancel. You agree instantly, then spend the whole day wishing it wouldn't happen. You don't want to disappoint them, so you disappoint yourself quietly. And over time, your energy becomes a debt you can't repay. If this feels familiar, stay with me. You read rooms better than you read yourself. You can sense moods, tone shifts, unspoken tension. But when someone asks what you want, your mind goes blank. You became emotionally intelligent for survival, not for connection. You feel responsible for other people's emotions. If someone is upset, you assume it's your fault. If someone is quiet, you rush to fix it. If someone is uncomfortable, you shrink. You confuse empathy with obligation. But emotions are not debts you owe. You explain your boundaries like you're on trial. When you finally say no, you add a story, an excuse, a justification. You don't set boundaries. You negotiate your right to exist. Powerful people don't over-explain. They state. You feel resentment, but can't express it. You're not angry because you're bad. You're angry because you've been silent too long. Resentment is the bill for unspoken boundaries, and it always arrives late but heavy. You feel valued only when you're useful. You feel loved when you give, needed when you fix, seen when you sacrifice. So you keep offering pieces of yourself, hoping someone will notice the cost. But being needed is not the same as being valued. If you recognized yourself in this, you are not weak. You are self-aware, and self-awareness is the beginning of freedom. You don't have to become cold. You don't have to become cruel. You just have to stop disappearing. Machiavelli would say this: a person who makes themselves agreeable to all becomes owned by all. To him, people-pleasing is a strategic failure. You give power without negotiation. You surrender leverage without respect. Not because you're bad, but because you misunderstand human nature. And human nature respects clarity, not sacrifice. Let's dive into the shift that happened from people-pleaser to respected individual. The cure to people-pleasing is not cruelty. It's self-definition. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be rude. You don't need to be heartless. You need clear boundaries, fewer explanations, the courage to disappoint. The moment you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you become trusted by the right people. And yes, some will leave. That's not loss. That's alignment. If this resonates, follow. This page is about power with wisdom, not bitterness. Here's the quiet truth. People-pleasing doesn't make you safe. It makes you replaceable. The world doesn't need another agreeable voice. It needs people who know who they are and stand there calmly. You were not born to be a mirror. You were born to be a presence. If you're ready to stop shrinking, if you're ready to choose yourself without guilt, follow. We're having the conversations most people are too afraid to start.